future.
Dr. Rajim Brazard.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's also a pleasure to take a call on this bill, and in doing that, to congratulate our colleague Tracy Martin for picking this up, for first thinking about it and designing it and then having it drawn. It's part of her advocacy for vulnerable people, which is consistent with what we believe in here. But, Mr. Speaker, as we reflect on the period through which we have, as a state, developed approaches or provided assistance to vulnerable people, particularly vulnerable children, we have always done that with strings attached. And that history that New Zealand has of providing support to families or individuals in vulnerable families is a checkered one. And it is beginning to change now as we begin to realize that the outcome for many of these families is not the result of their own behaviour. It is where they find themselves and a lot of external influence on outcomes for families. And in that period, when we've had this approach to a residual approach, if you like, Mr. Speaker, to providing support for these families, we've only provided them with just that much support that ensured that they were no better off and decidedly worse off than those children of those families who were in work. And so we've had this struggle throughout the period of child welfare history in New Zealand in providing support for families of the type that this particular bill addresses. And throughout the period of the 1925 Child Welfare Act, which was in existence until the late 1970s, that certainly was the case. I remember many cases working in the field with vulnerable families, and because the parent might have been in work, but they were poor, and trying to get some assistance, little bit though it might be, through the then social security system was impossible, because a moralistic set of principles prevailed that you couldn't do this, and if they were living with family or related, then you couldn't provide care, financial assistance for them. And we saw some of that, Mr. Speaker, in our foster care system for a long time. Well, it's not too dissimilar to what this particular bill is trying to do, where foster parents were, in a sense, required to have their own input, the contribution they made to the lives of vulnerable children, often those in the care of the state, because the assistance provided for them was not all of what was required. There was a gap between what they needed.
Sorry to interrupt the honourable member. The time has come for me to leave the chair for the dinner break. This debate is interrupted. I shall resume the chair at 7:30.